Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Member Thompson?
Here.
Member Looney?
Here.
Member Rothenberger?
Here.
Chair Stevens?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great. So we are here to review the proposed marine lighting ordinance. As this is a special meeting, we will only be discussing that topic. I'm going to open it up to audience comment. Seeing none, we'll move forward. Item 4, we'll go to item A, or the item for discussion is the ordinance. Brandon, do we want to just do what we did in the last time and just go section by section? It
That works
was
for me if it does for the
very effective last time.
Okay, so we'll start with the ordinance. This is the marked up ordinance. We also have a copy of the clean ordinance. Brandon Berry, by the way, senior planner with the city. I wanted to start at the very top to talk about the division title. I failed to include this, but I'm suggesting that we change it to wildlife-friendly lighting or something of that nature. Dark windows help the birds. There are other, and that's more in line with the state's language. So I'll think of a change in the division title, but is the board or the committee amenable to that?
Yes,
Okay.
actually it was one of my comments. Beat me to it.
Very good. All right, I will start working through the sections. No change in the purpose and intent, but there is language I think that we can add to make that broader and more inclusive of other wildlife. There is a purpose and intent that I'll send out to the committee from the state's wildlife lighting ordinance that we can include.
One question I have just as we getting into it is, and never assume, I believe you guys have, as you've gone through this, thought about enforceability and holding up in court. I know that there's some technical things, and we've heard from different sources that you need to make sure that, one, it's enforceable, and two, the standards hold.
One of the first things we did was have our code enforcement department look this over, and they'll be involved throughout the process. But they did make a few comments that have made enforceability a little bit, easier on their side. But they have reviewed this ordinance in full.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, working down through definitions, most of these are definitions directly out of the state model lighting ordinance. Certified wildlife lighting, this state maintains a repository of approved products. We're just relaying that. We do have a process where they can independently certify their own fixtures. There have been fixtures, bulbs, other installations that haven't necessarily been certified by the state, but if they have an alternative certification, they can submit that as well. Construction, we're deferring to the meaning in Division 2, and I will get into a little bit of detail on this. I think this might be one of the most important parts of the ordinance. I would like to talk through with the committee. We've made updates to cumulatively illuminated, directly visible. That's, of course, direct source of lighting from a bulb or a direct cast source of light. So a source of light shining on a wall, for example, that would be a direct source. An indirect source would be when it bounces off one surface and is still visible from another. You see that a lot, especially when there's harsh uplighting on white buildings. Generally, they tend to bounce, and you have a secondary source of illumination, which would be indirectly illuminated. Existing beachfront lighting and then new beachfront lighting, new construction is something we'll get into in a later section of this division. For full cutoff, this is something we don't currently have in our ordinance. It's something that the state recommends that we include. It's not just having a sconce or another cover on a light bulb. It's actually an orientation. The lighting is oriented so that there is no lighting above 90 degrees. It's a sconce that is full enough to provide that lack of light source above 90 degrees. They recommended we take out illuminated because we use the terms indirectly and directly illuminated throughout our ordinance. We use the state's definition, I'm proposing to include the state's definition for long wavelength. That's a wavelength of 560 nanometers or greater, absent wavelengths below 560 nanometers. There are older bulb types that we are removing from the ordinance. They're not appropriate. We refer to wavelength instead of bug type. Other types that could be greater than 560, or less than 560 nanometers. And then new coastal construction, again, I want to get into a little bit more detail on this in the section that refers to this definition. Again, removing bulbs that are no longer referred to directly. Talk about what a shielding element is. Tinted glass, this is actually a standard that we are proposing that is stricter than the current model lighting ordinance. The current model lighting ordinance through the state recommends 45% VLT or less. There was research that the state supported earlier this year that showed that 30% or less is what really moves the needle on false crawls and additional issues with turtles. So we're proposing to update it to 30% at the recommendation of the Sea Turtle Conservancy. And then transient lighting are those fixtures that are not permanently affixed. They're not interior room lighting. Those are fixtures that might be involved with a special event. They're a temporary setup. They're not something that a lodging facility or a condo or another beachfront residence or business is going to have permanently installed, but it refers to those special event lighting, which I'll go into more detail later on in this ordinance. Take out again true neon uplight, which is better defined through full cutoff, and then visible from the beach. And that's just to state that if we're not defining it as directly or indirectly visible or illuminated, it's inclusive of both. Any comments or thoughts on the definition section?
I had two. One is, and I hope I'm saying this right, bollards. In one thing I've seen, I don't know where would it be covered there or someplace else? As I walk, especially at sunset at night, I've actually noticed those little solar lights you can pump on paths to light up the paths. And I know they're not turtle lights, but they're in the dunes. Is that something, if they were turtle lights, do we allow people to plop things in the dune to allow lighting? And two, where should it be in the other beach ordinance that we're not talking about, or should it be here?
That's a good point, and I spoke to the state about this. I don't remember if a later section references distinctions between lighting landward and seaward of the frontal dune, but the state's recommendation is typically that any lighting waterward of the dune, or that there be no lighting waterward of the dune period during turtle season. We'll see if that's in a later section, but if not, that's something we can address.
Frontal dune, or I've seen it go all the way through to private property.
Okay.
So could you think about that? Just
Okay.
where should it be?
Absolutely.
Or should it not be? I'm not a,
We had those before the storm on our path. Never thought about it, because they sit so low to the ground, you just,
right,
yeah.
but
Yeah, no,
as
yeah.
you walk, as I've walked, and I, kind of happened to look east, I looked up, and I'm like, wow, I see the place I'm thinking about wasn't just one,
Okay.
it was all.
You're talking about the stake in the ground, dollar store, solar light, boom,
Absolutely,
boom, 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 boom. There's 20 of them down path.
Yep,
They put it out for a party and it stays there for 3 weeks.
stays
Or
there all year.
All the time,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
We had them
Yeah.
around.
yeah. That's a good point.
So I've seen that, and I actually know of a place where it's there, so
Very good.
I don't, if you could think about where that should go,
Absolutely.
okay?
Okay.
The other question in definitions was motorized vehicles. In the other ordinances, we have motorized vehicles in the other beach ordinance we worked on. The definitions don't match. I don't know if that matters or not, but just something, should they match?
They probably should for the purpose we're going to be using it. So we'll look at that. And if for whatever reason this definition is more inclusive, we will keep this in. If it's less inclusive, we'll defer to the ordinance and the
I'll let you,
ordinance.
whatever's the most appropriate, just for consistency.
Thank you.
That's all I had for definitions. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on. Section 44.3, the state requested that we identify through the ordinance a responsible department, that is our code enforcement department. Section 44.4, this is what is actually submitted to us to certify that new coastal construction is compliant with the wildlife-friendly lighting ordinance. We require that a statement for the construction be submitted, and I will say, as we work through permits for some of the new developments going on, Tradewinds has made some improvements at the back. The Serrata is going through a restaurant and kitchen remodel at the back of their site. The Miramar is building a new lodging tower. There have been no issues whatsoever with getting this information from the applicants. This is really just a check sheet for staff, for the applicants, so they know from stage one what needs to be submitted. Product specification and/or plan references to the certification numbers when they have been provided. The Fish and Wildlife Commission maintains a list. It's very easy to just reference that we're using these sconces, we're using these bulbs. For those that do not have that information, they need to give us sufficient certification that they have been deemed to be full cutoff, long wavelength, shielded, and so on. We do require an inspection prior to certificate of occupancy for new coastal construction. That would be anything visible from the beach. The Code Enforcement Department reserves the right to schedule an inspection. Again, this has not been an issue at all with any of our applicants. It's just codifying it so that we can reference it moving forward. And that would be an inspection for any new construction that does not utilize the bulbs that have been certified by the state. That is an automatic requirement for an inspection, just to make sure that they meet the nanometer requirements. And then we do later on talk about what constitutes existing beachfront lighting. When they've been modified to comply with that section, we just ask for certification numbers or a reference at that time. Any concerns with any of that?
Nope.
Okay. So I consider this section to probably be the most important of the ordinance, so I want to go into a little bit of detail on it. And this is classification of new coastal construction and existing lighting. So the state has a definition for, they have standards for construction, but they do not have an independent definition of construction. And construction is defined slightly different in our land development code than it's defined in the Florida Building Code. What we are proposing to constitute new coastal construction, so that would be full compliance with the ordinance, is any construction of any new building, structure, or accessory structure where any new exterior or interior light source is visible from the beach. If they're building a new building, a new structure, a new outdoor bar, or something like that, anything attached to that structure or interior to the structure needs to be compliant with this ordinance. If they're redeveloping either a structure in whole or a part, any source that is reestablished on that redeveloped portion of that building would need to be compliant with the new coastal construction standards.
So if I'm a owner and I expand, does that mean everything now has to be?
Correct, or even a partial reconstruction of a building. For example, this was not associated with the storm, but the Tradewinds enclosed a portion of the rear of the Breckenridge where they made what was previously an open arcade type area into an enclosed space. That space was made compliant with the new coastal construction standards in our code. So we would include something like that. Even just a reconstruction or an alteration of that space would be new coastal construction.
Is it just that section, not the whole?
Excellent question. Yeah.
As proposed, yes.
Okay.
So there's no wiping, there's no elimination of grandfathering of non-conforming lighting?
Well, I wanted to talk through that, but as drafted, no. And this was written a certain way, and I want to get into that with the committee. But and what I think what we're talking about there is the remodeling or repair section, which is subsection 3.
Okay.
Any remodel or repair or addition to any building which introduces a new or replaces an existing exterior light source creates a new opening which exposes an interior light source to be visible from the beach, widens an existing opening from which a new or interior or existing interior light source is visible from the beach, constitutes a substantial improvement to the building or structure, or exchanges a window or door within an existing opening for the other from which an interior light source is visible from the beach. So this whole subsection could be collapsed into any time a window or light fixture is exchanged, it needs to be compliant with the new construction standard. We can go that direction. Some of the initial feedback we received, and the reason why this was drafted the way that it was that if one window is being exchanged, that is a repair under the Florida Building Code. It's not a level 2 alteration or a level 3, which is what you have when you're taking out a window and putting in a door or widening an opening. That would be an actual alteration to the building. A 1-for-1 exchange of one window would just be considered a repair, so it wouldn't fall under an alteration. The concern that was expressed to us, whether or not that's something the committee, accounts for under this section or not, is that changing out one window, especially with a 30% or less visible light transmittance window, when the rest of the windows are not compliant with that, it looks strange viewed from the exterior. It is much darker than a window with just standard glazing without any visible light transmittance reduction within it. We have the ability to write this much more simply and say if a window is being included in a new addition, any kind of reconstruction, or if it's simply being swapped out 1-for-1, it needs to meet the 30% VLT requirement. But I drafted this just to open that discussion and see if that's something that the committee is open to considering, or whether we should just make it as strict as possible. Any replacement needs to comply.
Incentives would be nice if there was a way to incentivize becoming compliant, if it wasn't a requirement.
Okay.
I do know, living on the island, that anytime you replace any glass, it has to be hurricane proof, and it is so expensive. So it's not something they're just gonna, if they're doing it, that's the time to make it compliant. But if we can't enforce it, it would be nice to incentivize it in some way. I don't know.
And I think we could enforce it. I spoke with the building official this morning, and if we had that standard in our code, every single window permit that comes in for a structure in line of sight at the beach, it would be required to show that they're installing a turtle-friendly window, wildlife-friendly window.
Right.
But
Because couldn't they find a film for the other windows that would closely match the new one, or?
they could, and we brought this up. This discussion occurred with the Tradewinds project when that moved through a few years ago. Tradewinds is obviously a very expansive property. They have a lot of windows to bring up to code, but they had mentioned that installing that film is millions of dollars. With a smaller condo, obviously that's a much lesser expense, but it could be in the high 5 to low 6 figures for the average building. So. I will.
About it is you have a condo, and in their bylaws, each unit is responsible for their own windows. And one unit is having an issue and replaces their windows. Does that force all the other unit owners to put up film or replace their windows? Am I paraphrasing the question correctly?
Yes.
I don't know how you.
Well, my thought was if they wanted them to look the same, maybe the film would be an option. But if they don't care if they don't match, like if it's condo units, I mean, maybe they do require them to match. I don't know.
Our condo, you have to.
Yeah, sorry.
When you replace, there's
Everyone
a
has to look
specific
identical. Yeah.
brand and
Yeah.
style window. Can you force? Then I could, if I had my unit and I live in a building with 5 units, I'm having a water problem, I need a new window, but my other unit owners won't agree to replace, am I stuck with a leaky window?
And we could make it specific to the unit or just the window being replaced,
Yeah.
not necessarily make the whole.
See
building.
because in a perfect world, everyone, when that happens, everyone replaces their windows at the same time, but that's not going to happen.
Maybe they need to become more flexible, the condo facility, on how matchy-matchy we are. If
That
you're
could
going,
be.
if you're going compliant and the others aren't, then eventually they have to all come to that same compliance, but.
Typically, there's a compliance with laws provision too, that if you were replacing a window and it's required to have film, that you put the film on the Anderson window if Anderson doesn't have a tinted glass. We've left an option so that you could use film on the
But I
inside.
was talking about the other unit owners.
Yeah. You could
Forcing
write
them
it
to go through
you
the
could write it
expense, or
that
do I have to pay for their film?
whatever you want to write. So if you want to write just that window has to be compliant, you can write that into the ordinance here.
Because when we did windows the reason I know this, when we did windows, we actually got our permit, we had to show that they were turtle glass to the appropriate standard. And then when we had our inspection, they came out and did that. Now, 4 of the 5 of our units did at the same time. I'm just, having this discussion is, how do we think about this for hotels and condos and houses?
If you take away the new construction aspect of it, and there's a non-conforming light behind a window somewhere, what do we do? Currently.
So typically the requirement, well, for existing lighting, they have the option to simply move the light out of the window or install blinds or, shutters. That's an option for existing lighting in both the state model code and ours.
We've had some code enforcement the last few weeks that bars were shining out into the beach, and so they had to lower shades.
I'm just wondering if there's anything that we can use from that to this.
Well, we could certainly make all replacement windows comply with the 30% VLT standard if that's what the commission ultimately adopts. Just keep it at that, not necessarily apply to every window on the building. And then for those who are concerned about consistency in the exterior look, they can just do it all at the same time.
So if you have a house on the beach, the storm comes through and knocks out one of your 5 windows, you have to replace the one that's knocked out. You're gonna have to put in the modern window. The other 5, the other 4, you don't have to do anything with, right?
If that's the only replacement being made, yes.
So that's the way we handle it for residential.
I
Correct?
think if you
Correct.
don't, if you don't force compliance,
They'll
unless
never
there's an
do it.
incentive, it won't happen.
Yeah, I like the incentive aspect of it.
I don't know what you.
I don't know how you do that.
I don't know if you can do some kind of,
You were doing that last month too,
I just,
the carrot instead of the stick.
people need to have a
I like that.
reason to do the right thing anymore. It's hard. And it's expensive. Money,
Windows are expensive.
everything is so expensive. And I don't know what the price difference is. I've not priced Turtle windows
They're
versus,
expensive.
I know ours are expensive. We can only do 3 at a time. so.
Years ago, when the Donna Cesar expanded the Oceania or whatever piece of, right?
Mhm.
So that was like, so here's this existing building, and they put on a new piece.
They're doing a ballroom now.
Okay. So what happens with that? They got, 80 new windows on the new piece, and they've got, 300 on the old piece. The permit's going to be for the 80 new windows. It's not going to affect the 300 existing.
No, typically not. What we did make an exception, and it does not apply to the Don Cesar, but to other buildings.
I'm just
When it-
using that as an example.
Of course.
Yeah.
When there's a substantial improvement to the building, all of them need to be made compliant. But if it's an addition that is not a substantial improvement, it's whatever's being added on.
So that 49, 50% thing kicks in again?
Exactly, yeah.
Oh,
Well, that's what's
Nightmare.
currently drafted. So.
yeah.
But under the building code, substantial improvement is new construction. It's treated no differently from something being built from the ground up. So that's what kicks that in. So it sounds like requiring the single window or door replacement, that single window or door in a non-substantial repair-only footprint would require that single window or door to be
Yeah.
made compliant. And then the owner, of course, has the option to
I
apply
think
film.
by default, we have to limit the scope.
Yeah.
And we can't use one of 1,000 to affect the other 999, right? That's just my way.
And I've seen other ordinances that have a compliance period. I don't know how the city attorney feels like that for something, feels about that for something like this, where there's a comply deadline.
I think, is there a possibility that the incentive would be if you have tinting, then you don't have to use shades or blinds in the evening to prevent your light from shining through the window to
Right.
the beach? So it's kind of a built-in incentive that you don't have to go out and pull your shades every night. But they still, if they didn't tint the windows, they still would have to pull the blinds or
Yeah.
Move the lights.
Exactly.
roll the drapes so that they're not interfering with the turtles.
I agree with that.
I mean, after the construction's done, they're either compliant or non-compliant. And from an enforcement standpoint, what difference does it make whether it's a month old or 10 years old? They're still non-compliant or they're compliant. And if they're non-compliant, they gotta do something about it, right?
I think the windows will have a natural life, and they're going to get hit by hurricanes every now and then. And people do replace their windows every now and then, but it is very expensive. So I hate to
Right.
require someone to spend $100,000 in their house to put new windows in.
And we might have like bigger fish to fry, no pun intended, excuse me, with coach lights that are outside the windows, that are a lot easier and cheaper to replace. It might be a bulb swap out. So, you have to wonder how much impact at what cost. I think limiting the scope, I'm comfortable with. I think that's realistic.
If you put in a new window, it needs to be to standard. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, and you got form and function, and the function is okay. It has to be new. It has to be functioning new in a new way. If it doesn't meet the existing form, that's on you, not on us.
Okay. Thank you. And then this will be modified, defining what existing lighting is for this division and the purposes of permitting. Those are existing lights that are visible on the beach from the interior that are visible through a window or door. So again, when the window or door has not been modified or exchanged, it doesn't comply with the visible light transmitted standard that we are adopting. I will remove the portion about undergoing like-for-like replacement because it is the recommendation of the committee to make that single window or door comply with the glazing standard.
Glazing or film.
Film, correct. And then this is just a carryover from our current ordinance, and it's what allows us to address those exterior lights that even if they have been in place, the fixture's been in place for 20 years, they needed to have been made compliant by 2007. So that's what we cite when we're citing violations. It doesn't matter if it was installed 20 years ago, it needs to be compliant because we did have that compliance deadline. Yeah.
That was what was the significance of that date?
I think that was just our original compliance deadline, and I just
You
want
explained
to
it.
carry it
Yeah.
over.
Thank you.
This section is not being struck. Section 44.3 is being brought into Chapter 95, our beach ordinance, so this is just being relocated. Section 44.6, standards for new beachfront lighting. We retain most of these standards. We are requiring, again, references to the long wavelength light instead of the individual bulb types that were previously in our code. The state discourages using those bulb types. They encourage referring to the wavelength. We reference the certified wildlife lighting program references or demonstration through spectrometric inspection. Part of the challenge we have in talking with the state, this is a challenge statewide, especially for those municipalities on the West Coast. It's difficult to go up to someone's property in the middle of the night and hold a spectrometer a few feet away from the bulb and determine if it's in compliance or not. We do have the film, we do have the cards that we use for just a quick check, but we haven't tested whether or not that holds up long term. It's really just for a, line of sight review. So this would allow, at least at the time of inspection for new construction or the change out of windows, doors, exterior fixtures, for us to go up to the rear of the site and perform the inspection if need be. We will require exterior fixtures newly installed to be full cutoff. That is a new definition in this code amendment. Again, changing out the references to being long wavelength. We did not have any standards for pools, spas, and accessory decks. That was one addition that the Sea Turtle Conservancy requested that we add in. So we just specify that pools, spas, accessory decks need to utilize long wavelength lighting, fully shielded bulbs and fixtures. Underwater lighting needs to be mounted horizontally and not be directly or indirectly visible from the beach. Usually not an issue, but those lights that extend above the pool deck, that illuminate the pool deck, would still be subject to the lighting standards.
So on the pool, and I just know this because we had our building turtle certified, and to do that, we actually had to put a wildlife-friendly wavelength light in our pool. So we actually exchanged that out. So they are available
In the pool, the
in the
light.
pool, the underwater light bulb.
Is that a county or a state thing, or a city thing?
That was the program we went through to get our condo building certified. To do that, it was every external light, and one of the external lights was our pool light. For us to get our gold star, we had to change it, so we did. So it's just something we could potentially consider here, is having them change that.
I guess what I'm asking is according to what standard and who writes the standard? Is it the city or the county or the state?
Well, I think we could include it in our ordinance. If we need this language to go a little bit further, we would still defer to their wildlife lighting program. They do have underwater lighting certifications, as you pointed out, so they could still use that independent certification, or they could defer to the state's program.
So I think it's a state law that commercial pools have a light.
Okay.
I believe that's correct. I don't know if private pools need to have a light, but I know commercial pools.
Commercial pools definitely do, yes.
Now, the question is, do we want in our ordinance to define that that light needs to also be wildlife friendly?
Right. Well, and you get into other aspects. The same. Maybe there's some poles that have overhead lights over the pool deck.
Yeah, that's included in this.
Or
That
maybe it's
had to be, this is the underwater
Okay.
section, and I'm not for or against, I'm just, you can't see that
You know,
light
when sea
from the
turtle
water.
babies ended up in your pool.
We had, that's actually why,
Okay.
it's fascinating you say that. The reason we went through the process of doing what we did is we had baby turtles in our pool.
No kidding.
And we had then we said, okay, enough's enough, and we had our building
Unbelievable.
gold starred and got the certificate. But it's amazing you say that. That's why we ended up doing what we did. We
Well,
found baby turtles in our pool.
I think it's interesting because so much of the dunes have gotten flattened since last year. You possibly do see some pool decks that you didn't see previously.
Right.
I've walked some parts of the beach at night, but not all of it.
So you have the water under the light, putting the glow up.
Not, wait, you could, yes.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, if you're on the beach and it's illuminated, then that would obviously be an issue, but I don't know if you wait for it to be an issue to enforce it, or?
Well, I think with this being under the new coastal construction standard, I think it's, that would be a reasonable requirement for any new pool or, significantly remodeled pool, if the committee
Go
agrees.
back with, yeah. Can you tell the difference with the pool light? I mean, is it significantly dimmer,
I wouldn't say dimmer, it's different.
different?
It's different.
No baby turtles this year.
No,
There you
not
go.
that I'm saying there's a correlation, but we had more nests in front of us since we did the work than not. But that's,
Cool.
I can't,
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah.
not going to submit that made a difference. It's just, it could have been these go in waves.
So for new pools, significant remodels, we would apply that standard.
Okay. And the one right before it, there's dune crossover.
Mhm.
Yes.
Is that defined? Is that a wood walkover or is that a path? Or that gets back into the one question I had about the solar.
That might be good to define. For example, with the Miramar, they're reestablishing their dune walk. If you've been out to the site, it's a it's a cliff, but they're working with the state, and a portion of it will be an actual built walkover. A portion will be a cut through the dunes. So it would probably be a good idea to define that as either.
Right. And I know the Florida DEP actually has a whole pay or standard on what a wood walkover would be. And a cut through would be a sand path.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay.
Okay. Moving on to standards for existing beachfront lighting, section 44.7. Only modest changes here. Our ordinance, thankfully, was based on the, I believe, 2000 state model lighting ordinance, and there have been some technical updates. You see that with the long wavelength standards, but overall, the types of structures, the triggers, those have all more or less stayed the same from revision to revision. So, and this talks about replacement lighting. Removes those true neon, yellow bug type bulbs and so on that the state no longer recommends. And just talks about those fixtures that necessarily need to have a short wavelength light would be exempt where state law prevails, but there are very few situations. I'm not actually aware of one. And the rest would need to be made compliant. And this is getting into what we were talking about previously. This is effectively retained as it is currently drafted in the code. This is also in line with the state model lighting ordinance. So those who have existing buildings, they're not changing out windows, they're not changing out any kind of exterior or interior lighting fixtures. They would be eligible to either apply window tint or film. They can remove lamps from the windows or use window treatments like blinds or curtains or, of course, the film to comply with this standard. Moving on to section 44.
Before you do,
Yes.
so at the very beginning it says by July 1st, 2008. Just, that threw me for a loop.
And that's just a carryover from our current code. I didn't want to adjust any of the dates because I was
Okay.
afraid we would lose that. But we cite this all the time when referencing lighting violations.
That's
So
fine.
And it lets people know it's been the law for a long time.
No, I'm not, I just wanted to make sure I understood why.
no change to standards for publicly owned
Oh,
lighting.
On the,
sorry.
let's see,
That's,
number 8 under that section. It says plants, vegetation buffers between light source like that. Can we talk about making sure that, those are native friendly, right? They're not putting up Australian pines to solve the problem, but be specific, especially if they're on the dunes. And then one question is, if they're on the dunes, do they need a permit to plant? I don't know the answer to that.
that's a good question.
we want to make sure they're putting in dune-friendly,
Mhm.
hold sand down, sea grapes, sea oats, probably sea grapes if it's all the way back, sea oats if you're in the
It
front.
doesn't say dune, but that is the space between the light source and the beach, so,
Usually.
yeah.
So if you just think, I'll let you word it, but that's, I kind of thought about that.
Yeah, the Florida Department of Environmental Protection has a great pamphlet on effectively everything you can plant in the dunes and, you know,
Be friendly.
friendly. So we'll defer to that.
Your question raises, it just gets me thinking. Brandon, does the confusion between who owns what sand, it's kind of timely now, right? Does that have any impact on what we're talking about here? Is it city, county, state, private? It's all one and the same?
Well, for the chapter 95, we do make distinctions, but for this, it's any light source, so there really isn't that public-private distinction.
Okay.
We have slightly higher standards in 44.8, but other than
Okay.
that, yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to 44.8, no changes here, so this refers to street lighting, parking lot lighting, beach access lighting, and we have that higher standard for the shield fitting. State did not recommend any changes to this section.
The sunrise to sunset, we've defined that differently, or did we define that differently? This is a consistency question. I understand sunrise and sunset, but we have different versions of sunrise and sunset. I think
It
in
goes
the
in the beach ordinance.
right. So I just, for consistency, you might.
Absolutely, good comment. We are adding a section to the recommendation of the state, and also just as good practice related to special events utilizing light during turtle season. This should be inherent in the other sections, but just to call it out and make it clear that special events, temporary light sources, they all need to be compliant with this ordinance. Any lighting utilized on a stage or on any kind of special event during turtle season needs to be sea turtle friendly and wildlife friendly.
We discussed, during turtle season, should we discussed in the last one, fireworks.
You're reading my mind.
There's lighting with fireworks is one thing, but two, there's the pollution of fireworks that go on the beach that then can affect the wildlife. I'm in favor of saying in the other ordinance, I said no fireworks on the beach because of that matter, but we should also, if it doesn't go there, at least we should have it during this season. So I wouldn't be opposed to having no fireworks here as well. I don't know, that's me, I don't know if everyone else agrees or disagrees.
So that would be in case the amendment to, or the request under Chapter 95 is not approved, this would be the fallback, at least during turtle season, no fireworks.
Or belts and suspenders have it in both places.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I'll leave that to legal to.
Well, it's July 4th is in the middle. We don't do the July 4th fireworks on the beach, right? We do them
I don't believe so.
on the other side.
We
Some of the
moved it on
hotels-
purpose.
Some of the hotels try to get special permits.
That's why I brought it here.
Mhm. There's a lot of fireworks up and down the beach on the 4th. It's on our end, there is.
Private, yeah.
Okay. Very good. No changes to the requirements for construction during nesting season. We have standards, and those are pretty boilerplate. We do enforce this. We did add including use of temporary light sources. The problem is sometimes you have a property that's fully compliant with the long wavelength standard, but then they put construction lights up at the rear of the site that are not compliant. So we're making it clear that those temporary light sources also need to be turtle compliant. There was a recommendation just to pare down our enforcement section 44.11. Inspections are required by the Code Enforcement Department. They had actually asked that the existing prevailing sentence be removed because if you specify the week when they're doing the inspection, they might be compliant that week and not otherwise throughout the season. So they do random inspections, and that tends to fare better for, making sure everybody's in compliance.
People can turn off their lights.
Correct. Right.
That's a simple fix.
Yeah.
And then we listed out penalties. So there are different standards that we follow for transient lighting. Those that are in compliance that fall under a building permit are subject to those standards under the code. When there are properties that have multiple light sources that are in violation of this division, each may be cited as a violation, just making that clear. Violations that originate from a transient lighting source, like a special event, or that originate from individuals in the public beach, shall be cited in accordance with our new citation procedure, so that those who have a transient lighting source or is generated from a special event that refuse to comply after being asked to do so can be cited for fines. And during marine turtle nesting season, any light source that's installed upon any public property that's visible from the beach that we have not authorized can be removed without notice. And this is, again, just following our monitoring and reporting guidance. I believe this is provided by these sea turtle trackers currently, but this is just the annual report that we submit to them showing violations, corrections, and false crawls and so on. We submit that on an annual basis.
Can we add, should be submitted to this committee as well?
Yes.
We could also say potential to the city commission, but at least here. Does the city have to approve that sea turtle tracker's license every year? How does that work?
FWC does.
But to give them, because they only do St. Pete Beach. Clearwater does the rest of the island.
Yeah, I've been involved in a couple of the FWC things, and they're dividing up the different segments in different areas, and they're reshuffling the permits around the state.
But we,
It's all done by the state.
we don't have any say on who does the sea turtle tracking here on the island.
I think only informally.
Okay. I didn't know how that worked.
Permit's issued by the state, and then it's issued for particular segments, for particular purposes.
Ralph, on the, excuse me, on the, who is it that sets the rules? Is it federal EPA? Is it state Fish and Wildlife, in as much as what you can and cannot do to, say, an existing nest?
Maybe
Maybe
you
you
say
don't.
you mean public, not the sea trackers. You're talking now just about
Anybody.
Endangered Species Act at the federal level, and then at the state level, there's also protections at the state level as well.
I
So-
think it's managed by the question, I think your
U.S.
question is
Fish
who
and
sets
Wildlife
the rules,
Service,
Yeah.
FWC.
what they're allowed to do and not. I
Yeah.
believe that is the state that sets the specific, that you can't touch a nest without being named on the
You
list.
can't harm or harass an endangered species, including marine turtles, under the Federal Endangered Species Act, and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service gets involved in comments on projects that involve federal permits or federal funding, but they can also do what's called private taking enforcement on private projects, and that's at the federal level. And citizens can file citizen suits under the Federal Endangered Species Act for, say, like driving on the beach in
Right.
sea turtle season, which are frequent cases. And then there's also the state of Florida has their own regulations, and they're patrolled by Florida Marine Patrol and FWC. And so we still have occasions of people sometimes poaching sea turtle nests. in the
I
east.
know we're off topic here, but it's the questions have been raised. And, if we have a nest that's, unusually close to the wet water line.
To remove a nest, like say during a beach renourishment project that's happening in the sea turtle season, you have to have a permit from the state and the federal to relocate the nest, and that's can only be done by permit holders. And there is a way to do that, And there is a way to get that permit. It's thick and there's a lot of conditions, and you have to go through at least a couple-month process to get it.
And that would be specific to a renourishment or other similar?
Well, there's other ones that say if there's a nest in danger, that the beach monitoring permit holder is allowed to take eggs and hatch them and then replace them on certain occasions. And then I know Sanibel has a bad coyote problem now, so they're allowed to put chicken wire over the tops of the nests to allow the hatchlings to come out, but prevent the coyotes from getting in. So
Or if there's some nests that are
It's
too
not
close to the
permit.
water line, and we know there's gonna be a king tide or a storm
Some of
coming,
those are removed.
can
like
we
for-
can we relocate the nest, or can someone?
You can't, but a permit holder can, like on
Okay.
Longboat Key, the Moat Marine comes
Okay.
out and they have their buckets and they take them and relocate the nest, but it has to be done by a permit holder.
And in our case, it might be sea turtle trackers that would
It would
initiate
be sea
that.
turtle trap. They're the ones that hold the license.
Okay.
And I believe you have to be named on the license to actually do it.
Okay,
So it's
Yeah,
even
they've gotten
stricter.
even more specific where you have to say who's going out on what day and,
Yeah.
and each
Okay.
individual person has to go
Okay.
through training.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah, thank you.
Mhm.
That's all I had. Any other comments from the committee or anything we missed?
As always, you've knocked it out of the park, man.
Great job.
This is like minutia on top of minutia with wavelength and,
So, I guess I'm curious, the entire document, is it only during turtle season, or is this a year-round requirement for lighting and,
So the lighting is year-round, and
Okay.
this comes up frequently. The exception would be outside of turtle season for special events. They would not need to comply, or construction visible from the beach, that would not need to comply, but within the season, yes.
and as far as enforceability, obviously during turtle season is very important, but outside of turtle season, are we monitoring, like, turtle lighting, like
Yes.
December through?
So, and that's part of the reason for that removal of that one sentence. Of course, they can go out as frequently as they want, but they start fairly early in the year. They might actually start toward the end of the preceding year, just to do those initial
that's
inspections.
a great question.
So-
Well, we have a lot of friends, like visitors and such, and so we talk about, like, if you walk at night with flashlights, can you walk with a flashlight in December, January, you know, that type of thing, versus during turtle season. So those are all just curiosities, I think.
There's also other wildlife that it affects.
Right,
So
right. Yeah.
you'd want, it's better just to say year-round.
Well, no, that
because-
was the question, like, is it okay out of turtle season? But yeah, so the designation doesn't matter
You
when.
should have a wildlife-friendly flashlight, which you can get on Amazon.
There you go, okay.
And, you know, there are some properties that are coming back online here in the near future. It'll probably be after season.
Mhm.
And I imagine that the repair process and the permitting process would incorporate these things into their reopening.
Correct, yes. And
Once passed.
Good.
we never face challenges with additions and significant construction, and especially with those exterior lighting fixtures. By and large, all property owners comply, but when you get down to, like you said, the minutia of what happens when you're changing out one window, you know, that's where it can get a little bit dicey, and I think that's what this really is intended to address.
Okay.
Good.
Dan, anything from you?
I had one quick thing, and it's on the native plants. On the dunes, there are definitely requirements which you can put on there, but I'm looking in 44.7 where we talk about somebody could use vegetation buffers for light, which makes sense. But if that's on their property, is there something that would keep them from putting the Brazilian peppers, or is there something that the city can say, no, you can't put that there?
We do prohibit Category 1 plantings.
Okay.
Category 2, for example, I believe coconut palms are currently Category 2. We do not prohibit those, but what is planted in the dune does need to be native stabilizing vegetation. So, and the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, they have a pamphlet that really lists out all the appropriate plantings. So we would direct them to that. If they wanted to use something else, we would evaluate at that time.
Okay.
A
Thank you.
subject for another day
Yeah.
is
It's called
planting
job
on the
security.
island and non-natives, because there's a team called Dune Savers. What they're noticing is things that are planted on island going into the dunes, taking over and getting rid of all the stuff we want there to hold, I always say the seawalls of the West. If we don't have the right things there holding that sand down, we're in trouble. But we can talk about that as a potential conversation for another meeting. Any other comments? Do we want, I know we had public comment before. Everyone okay to allow another public comment? I am.
Sure.
Yes, please.
Okay, Cindy Perry.
Please state your name and address for the record. It's good to see you.
My name is Cindy Perry, and I live on Boca Ciega Isle Drive. And I just wanted to make one comment. First of all, very excited to see this work. As you all know, I'm a birder, and 80% of the birds migrate at night. And one of the things we need to think about is sometimes when you put a darkened window, it actually reflects more, and you're more likely to have a bird strike. And birds like the wavelength to be long as the turtles do, like 590 or whatever. So when you were talking about just turtle season, it's really a bigger picture. When a bird strikes a window, even if it flies away, they usually die. So just wanted to mention the birds.
Thank you. I appreciate you being here. With that, do I need a motion to adjourn?
You can.
I motion that we adjourn.
Second.
I do have a couple updates.
Oh, I'm sorry. I should have went to you, Camden.
First off, the Up on Beach Nourishment, we should start seeing construction progress starting today out there. So the sand placement and grading activities are expected to last about 4 weeks. And the beach access will be closed while that work is going on. Pinellas County does have a project website specific for this project, so you can check the updates as well as what's going on in the rest of the county's
When you
renourishment
say the
project.
access is going to be closed, I don't mean to interrupt, but when you say the access is going to be closed, there's one of those plastic fence things on the beach that runs down to the water, and it's right there at the Silver Sands. So the southernmost walkover is still open.
It's still up, yes, sir.
Are you saying that everything from that southernmost northbound to the pass is going to be shut down?
Yeah, pretty much where you see that fencing now is going to be their area. They'll be sticking to that
So
for.
can you still park at the beach pavilion and get onto or get into the Paradise Grill area?
Yes, you should still be able to park there and access the
But
grill.
that's the extent of it. You can't go off the deck. You can't go over the beach walk at the Paradise Grill.
Yeah, and north of there.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's similar when they did the Pass
Yeah.
Grill
Mhm.
Good.
refurbishment. They blocked it off, and
And they've done
there's
like
heavy
that with-
machinery that's, at
Yeah.
least there was when they did Pass the Grill. We don't want people there because we don't want them to get hurt.
Right.
So now, does that also include stopping beach walking along the wet sand at the water's line north of that Silver Sands fence?
I have to verify their limits. I think they have closed off access completely, but
That's what they did at Pass.
yeah.
They did? Okay. That's going to affect a lot of people.
Yeah, and their goal is shore up the area and get it done as quickly as
Get in and
possible.
out as fast as they can, obviously, yeah.
Mhm.
They're going to enjoy a nice, bigger beach.
And it's a big operation. I've seen it several times in the past, and it's
Oh, yeah.
it's big, acreage big.
Mhm.
So,
It desperately needs it.
and they're running 24/7, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't believe they're.
No,
It's loud, it's
Yeah.
kind of loud.
they were in the past. We'll
Yeah.
see. We'll see. Thank you for that.
Yes, sir. And then the second update I had was regarding my role here on the committee for the staff liaison position. We'll be transitioning that over to Mr. Brian Peckins. He is the Assistant Director for our Public Services Department. So he's been in the role for about 4 or 5 months now. So now that he's kind of settled in and gotten used to city operations, we thought that'd be a good time to bring him in to this committee. So Brian, he's here joining us today if you'd like to meet him. He holds a bachelor's and a master's in civil engineering. He's got quite an extensive career in construction, specifically with the Army Corps, and is also a licensed professional engineer. So I think he'll be able to provide a good technical perspective. His team manages our capital projects, so dune renourishment, or dune walkover replacements, and coordinate with the county on the renourishment. So looking forward to having him serve with you guys moving forward.
Sorry to see you
I know.
step aside, but
Yeah.
welcome to the team.
Yeah.
So back, we did have a second already
Okay.
to adjourn. Adjourn. Thank you.